Good day, dear students. Herewith, we are going to have a lecture 2 on Asian literature for second MA students. Let us start with Unit 1, the first poem, Moon Festival, written by Pei Dao. Before getting into that poem, let us have a brief introduction about the author and let's know what actually the Moon Festival is. Actually, the Moon Festival is an autumn festival which is celebrated by the Chinese people. It is a mid autumn festival which is celebrated in honor of the god of moon for helping them have a good yield and a good harvest for that year. In the ancient days, the Chinese emperors worshipped the moon as one of their important gods, and in autumn, they thanked the moon goddess for their harvest. In Chinese tradition, the full moon also symbolizes peace, prosperity, and family reunion. As a part of this moon festival, the Chinese people, no matter wherever do they live, they all get united. A kind of they hold a family reunion during this moon festival. And one of the important highlights of this moon festival is they used to share and eat moon cakes during this festival in the night, in the night time. Another important thing that we need to understand about this moon festival is they celebrate this in order to they celebrate this as a part of their belief, a mythology. According to that mythology, once upon a time, China had 10 suns, and the heat of 10 suns burnt everything on the earth. It was very difficult for the people to have a happy, prosperous, fertile life. A man called Cheng Yi, who was a famous archer, came to the help of the people and he shot down the 10 suns as a reward to this Hoi, a goddess of heaven gave him an elixir, on drinking which he would descend to the heaven and become one of the gods. But Changi did not want to descend to heaven, because he had married to a beautiful woman called Hoi. He wanted to live a happy, long life with Hoi, so he did not drink that elixir. But he gave that elixir to his wife to be kept safe. But there was a man called Peng Meng, who was an apprentice of Changi. He came to know about that elixir and he wanted to ascend to heaven and become a god. So, when Hoi was away from home, when he was for hunting, he went to the house of Hoi and threatened Changi to give the elixir to him. But Changi, as a good wife, did not want this elixir to go into the hands of such a evil person. So, in order to save that elixir, Changi herself drinks that elixir and ascends to heaven. As she was very loving and very and did not want to part her husband, she tried to ascend to the nearest part of heaven, that is moon. So when Hovi returned from hunting, he learnt what has happened and he always tried to see Changi in the moon. So whenever in the autumn season, whenever the full moon comes, that is the 15th day of 14th day of moon cycle, Hoi would used to have a dinner, a special dinner where he would present everything that Changi likes and tries to have a dinner with her wife who is in the moon. So this was later came to be celebrated by everyone in memory of Changi and in memory of Hui, who have given them the happy life. Let us see a small video on this mythology. See, here we could see 10 suns burning the entire earth, and the people are suffering a lot. There are no crops, there was a scarcity of water. Agriculture was completely affected, and people start dying due to extreme heat. See, this is Hoi, a famous archer who is going to hunt down the suns. Now Zhenghi has shot down all the 9 suns and leaving only one. The goddess of heaven is so happy and is going to present Hoi with a potion, with an elixir. He thinks of his beautiful wife and presenting her with that gift. This is Peng Meng, an apprentice of Hoi. Hui has advised his wife Cheng Yi to keep it very safe. Now Peng Meng goes and threatens uh, the wife and wants that magical potion. Now Changi has taken herself in order to save this world from such an evil man, and she ascends to heaven. Changi ascends to the nearest heaven, that is the moon. And the Chinese believe that Changi lives in that moon as a goddess. And this autumn and this mythology, this occasion was celebrated as autumn festival. This Hoey used to uh, share his dinner with his wife on this autumn day on the full moon. So this was later taken up as a moon festival in honor of Shengi and Hoey, as well as uh, a Thanksgiving festival for the god of nature for a good harvest. During this festival, one of the important highlights is people used to share these moon cakes. That's what is the speciality. As we do have Pongal for our Pongal celebration, Kolkata is for your Vinayaka Chaturthi. This moon festival is celebrated with this moon cakes. And another important thing about this moon festival is they decorate the entire city, their homes with lamps. And they have a kind of family reunion. People used to sit with their family and have their dinner together on the full moon day. Now let's move to an introduction to the author. The poem is written by Bei Dao. Bei Dao is the pen name of Zhao Zenkai. Zhao Zenkai is the real name of our poet, who is a Chinese American writer. He was born and brought up in the northern islands of China. But being a bit revolutionary during the Cultural Revolution of China in the 1960s, he was oppressed by the government. In order to escape some cruel punishments against him, and a warrant of arrest, he moved from China and he did not return to China, and he got the American citizenship. So now he is known as a Chinese American writer whose real name is Zhao Zenkai, and he writes in the pen name Bei Dao. Bei Dao meaning Northern Islands. The name stands for his birthplace. This Bei Dao is also can also be spelled as Pei Dao, and he is a prominent representative of a school of poetry known variously in the West as misty or obscure poetry. Misty or obscure poetry is a school of poetry where the poets do not aim at the classical mode of Chinese poetry. Instead, they would use deliberate obscurity. They would use minimalism, minimal language, and a kind of allegorical and indirect representation of idea. Minimalism is they use a minimal language so that everything is just hinted and suggested. Everything is left to the readers to connotate. Everything is left to the readers to decipher. Right? So this is what we call as misty or obscure school of poetry. I want you to take an assignment on this mystery or obscure school of poetry. Try to gather information on this school of Chinese poetry. In China, it is called as a Menglong Shi. I also want you to know something about the obscurity of Browning, the British poet. Yes, now coming to Bei Dao, he is also a co-founder of an influential literary journal called Jindai. It is this Jindai in which he started to write under the pen name Bei Dao. Later, that became his identity. And Jinten, meaning today, is a famous literary journal. And he has also been repeatedly nominated for a Nobel Prize in Literature. But he has not been awarded a Nobel Prize, but he has entered the shortlist so many times. Such is the great um, uh, literary standard of Beidao. Beidaro rarely makes use of conventional mode of poetry, and he is highly experimental. Experimental in terms of language as well as the figures, as well as he is experimental in genres also. Some of his best works are The Answer, An End or a Beginning, and a portrait of a young poet. I would also like to make a mention that Bei Dao used to write in Chinese language, and he has been translated into so many languages and English also. Bei Dao does not adhere to the strict meter, rhyme, pattern or tonal contrast. I hope you all remember when we were discussing about the Chinese poetry in general, we were talking about the musicality, the lyrical quality of Chinese poetry. Almost all the poems of China or Chinese literature is meant to be sung with the accompaniment of music. In the absence of music, it is chanted. But here, Beidavo, being experimental and strictly against the classical tradition or trend of Chinese poetry, he doesn't adhere to the meter, rhyme, or tonal contrast. His poetry doesn't have a rhyme scheme. His poetry doesn't have a fixed structure. Similarly, it also lacks the lyrical quality. It is highly prosaic. And in terms of minimalism, we are left to interpret the poem in so many ways. Bondage is a novella by Bei Dao, and Long Feng Zi, meaning Blue House, which is a collection of prose. Wu Zen Men, meaning Midnight's Gate, which is also a volume of essays. Herewith, we understand that Bei Dao is not only a poet but an essayist, a fictional writer, and so many. Now, coming to the poem Moon Festival. I have already posted a picture of the text of the poem Moon Festival. Now, I just would like to read the poem first. Lovers holding pits in their mouths make vows and delight in each other till the underwater infant periscopes his parents and is born. An uninvited guest knocks at my door, determined to go deep into the interior of things. The trees applaud. Wait a minute. The full moon and this plan are making me nervous, my hand fluttering over the obscure implications of the letter. Let me sit in the dark a while longer, like sitting on a friend's heart. The city, a burning deck on the frozen sea, can it be saved? It must be saved. A faucet drip drop moans the reservoir. With this, we come to an end of the poem. Before going to the interpretation or a detailed analysis of the poem, I want you to read the text again and again and come out with your own terms of interpretation. We shall continue the interpretation of the poem in the next lecture. If you have any doubt regarding Beidao or that mythology, let me know it. Post your comments and your doubts in my WhatsApp group, and I'll try to clear your doubts as soon as possible, or let me start my next lecture with a answer to your doubts. Thank you.